It's Podrzebiepodcast, the comic book nerdcast that dares to ask, what? Me worry?
Welcome now to the You Dirty Rat Department. That was a terrible keggy. Welcome to the You Dirty Rat Department.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe you asked to do that. Should be asking to have that cut out. Yeesh.
Come out and take it, you dirty yellow-bellied rat, or I'll give it to you through the door.
Anyway, Happy New Year, idiots. After decades of lobbying to rob us all of our collective culture with their monopoly on Mickey Mouse, the Disney Corporation can suck our respective dicks and pussies because Steamboat Willie is finally in the public domain. Hooray. I'll put in like a big cheer sound there.
Oh my God. Are you like purposely trying to make me blush?
I don't know. I didn't want to just leave it to the dudes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't realize I had heard about this thing where Disney and other companies, but mostly Disney, lobbied, like, was it like in the early 2000s to have that copyright extended?
So here's the thing. Steamboat Willie would have initially entered the public domain in 1955, extended the copyright. 1986, extended the copyright.
Yeah.
In 2003, extended the copyright. I mean, around that time is when it would have been coming into the public domain, and each time there was lobbying to sort of extend copyright protections.
Yeah. I think that it was that third one. That's the one that I had read about just in preparation for this. But that seems to be the one that got most people up in arms, right? Like, that's what I hear about.
The most recent one.
Yeah, the one in 2003.
Yeah. There was a lot of other things I think involved in that too. But also, like, people remember that because it's a theft, right? People remember when you rip them off. Like when you say, like, you're supposed to get something, like, let's say you were going to inherit a bunch of money and, like, someone came in and, like, contested the will and got the money instead. You're not going to forget that, you know? And that's what happens every time the copyright's extended, because it's a wealth of culture that we all should own. Like, we all deserve to own it. It's important. And it's just these big companies, they have a monopoly on it. And through sort of legal and capitalistic means, they're able to keep that for themselves and control that for themselves. And it matters. It sucks.
Well, I think the thing that irritates me is not like this ability to like have collective ownership of it, because I'm not going to do any Steamboat Willie thing. Maybe I will just for fun. But the irony that Disney made its vast fortune using things that were in the public domain, like all of these old European folk tales that are just owned by the collective. They used and they made their, what is that, the empire worth? Billions, trillions? I don't know.
Yeah, and in a sense, they stole it because they sort of become the definitive version of whatever story they steal. So it's like if you go do like a Bing image search for Pinocchio with your adult filter off or whatever, or on. You want to have that adult content filter on if you're looking for Pinocchio, for what I'm saying, because there'll be tons of them that are not drawn by Disney, but they all sort of reference that same sort of appearance. Like Disney is really, like, because it's so powerful in its influence, it's able to really like change the popular conception of all sorts of things that are of the people, like things that like they're folk culture. And also that's how new ideas come about, right? Like we reuse and we recontextualized ideas and we make new ideas out of that. And that's how it's always been. Look at like myths or something, you know, one culture's myth sort of leads into the next culture's myth and they kind of evolve over time.
Yeah, Greek gods become Roman gods.
Yeah, or like the Epic of Gilgamesh, and it's like the Noah story is in there, basically. You know, it's like, and so things get kind of like recycled and like recontextualized for different cultures, and it's important, right? It matters. So it sucks when people sort of take that away. And then the other thing is Mickey Mouse was co-created by iWorks,
grandfather to Sketchyworks.
There you I don't think they have the paternity test back on that one. He died in 1971 So his kids and him, theoretically, could have been making Mickey Mouse stuff in the late 50s, you know,
Yeah.
if the laws hadn't been changed. And the thing is, you enter into contracts with an understanding of how the law works. So if you sell something in 1927, you're selling it with the knowledge that, like, okay, in 1956, this will be available again to everybody in the public domain. It'll come back
Yeah.
around. But now when you sell something, it's a life sentence. And it's like people didn't sign up for that in the 30s. So if anything, at least the estates of those people should have like some sort of remuneration for that, those changes in laws, I think.
Yeah. Well, and we've seen that like with DC Comics. They've had to go to court several times. Marvel as well have had to do like character changes because of the way that they operated and were sort of using their talent in an unfair way. I think it's like pretty, you can say like Siegel and Schuster were treated pretty unfairly.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many stories like that where, you know, someone is heavily involved in the creation of something or outright creates something and then they kind of sell it, and just this big company, you know, they sell to another company and merge with another company. And now it's like you have these like corporate interests like algorithmically enforcing their copyrights, and it sucks. Like it sucks. And then on the other hand, especially with like comics, they want to act like they're like, oh, we're the new gods, we're the new cultural myths. And it's like, no, because the cultural myths and the gods belong to everybody, you pieces of shit. Like you can't have it both ways, you know?
Yeah.
Like it can't just be crass commercial marketing and then also deeply felt collective experiences or whatever in the same sort of way.
Yeah. Well, that whole thing with like comic book superheroes being like the new gods, it's like always seemed corny. And it's like, no, dude, it's just, they're fun stories. Shut the fuck up.
I agree to a certain point, but I do think some superheroes have become archetypal.
Like The Question.
Maybe more like Superman. I think Superman is like, people understand that as like an image, as like a symbol.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a really ridiculous one.
Like The Question.
Or like the Joker even.
Yeah.
So in honor of this big fuck you to Disney, we watched a bunch of copyright infringing Van Buren cartoons from the era of Steamboat Willie. And these are all from the Aesop's Sound Fables cartoon series that Van Buren, a New York-based animation studio, was producing in the 20s and early 30s. And they had these mouse characters named Milton and Rita, sometimes Mary, I guess Rita is referred to. I usually call them Mikey and Mindy.
I didn't realize that they had names.
Yeah, I don't think they officially have names, so I think that's why they can change a bit. I usually refer to them as Mikey and Mindy. So they had these mouse characters, and they redesigned them to look almost identical to Disney's Mickey and Minnie around the same time that Disney's Mickey and Minnie were becoming very popular. And in 1931, Disney actually got an injunction against the Van Buren studio to get them to stop using the characters. And afterwards, you get Cubby Bear as their character, who basically looks like Mickey, but he's a bear. He's that same rubber hose animation style, but with a bear head instead of a mouse head.
Yeah.
And interestingly, Mickey was reworked from Oswald the Rabbit, which Disney had created earlier in his career, but was owned by Universal. So it's kind of interesting how that's just another sort of way in which like Disney sort of experienced something, and then instead of like not being a dick about it, he would use that knowledge to screw over other people.
Yeah, like that's
So-
go ahead.
No, what were you saying? What were you saying?
Well,
Go
no, it
for it.
just seems like all of like the greatest businessmen do that, where they learn this like valuable lesson about how untrustworthy people or businesses are, but the lesson they take away from it always seems to be, well, I will do that too.
Yeah, it's
But I'll
always
do
the
it
wrong
better.
lesson. It's never like, wow, it hurts people when I do this. No,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, I could be hurting people way more.
Hey, Ubby works. Get over here.
And I mean, I'm not an expert in these cartoons. I don't really know sort of like how dire Ubby Works' career was after this. I know he did a lot of other cartoons after this, but he did a bunch with Disney, and like he was the genius of the pair, right? Like I don't know if Ubby Works died in poverty or something. I don't have any information about that. But I think there's an ecstatic truth to that story, that it's, you know, there's a relationship between creatives and business people where they fundamentally see the world differently. And one of them gets stomped on a bit, sometimes a lot.
So you picked out all of these videos because you do have a deep knowledge on animation.
I just said I don't.
Okay. Well, I wasn't listening to you. I'm sorry. And I won't be held accountable for my lack of attention.
All right, fine.
Okay.
I wait to talk too. Or in that case, I didn't.
Oh, but listen, you have more than I do, and you watch a bunch of cartoons, and you have a bunch up on your channel. And when you would do live streams, you would do the intermissions, and you would play all of these old cartoons. So, at least from my perspective, you do have a good knowledge base, or like more familiarity.
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with these cartoons. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have stopped you otherwise. I was just kind of being a dick. Or pussy, respectively.
Either way, I'm not going to suck it. All right. There were a lot of things about this. I took copious notes.
Oh my God. Oh, good. That's what I got on all of them, too.
Yeah, there's just so much that was kind of fun about these that I think they're of their time. One of the things I really liked is this sort of like weird flowy movements they would have where it'd be like
rubber hose animation. That's what you call that.
People bouncing like side to side. It was just so much fun. And the way they would do like these loops of animation was like absolutely mesmerizing.
Yeah. And these are not by any means the best examples of animation from the period. Van Beuren was kind of like, they got better, but they were kind of like a shisty studio. Like their animations are like jerky and not nearly as fluid as like a lot of other companies. Like you go watch like a Fleischer cartoon from the period, you know, it's just, it's like, they're so fluid and nice. Whereas like these are kind of jerky and they kind of cut out and there's frames missing and stuff like that. But there is a charm to them. They're still fun to watch and they're still entertaining. But just in terms of the quality, if that's something you're into, you definitely want to go check out other cartoons. Had you seen any of these before?
No, none of them.
Okay. These are kind of obscure too.
There were clearly some moments where it's like, wow, they put a lot of effort into that. And then moments later, it's like 3 frames per second.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't seen any of them. What's the name of it? Van Beuren, and it was RCA Photofoam Systems. That was the recording that they used. And one of my notes is RCA Photophone System is ass.
You mean their sound?
Yeah, their sound was bullshit, dude.
Yeah, they can barely do any dialogue. It must have been difficult at the time to record speaking onto cartoons.
Yeah.
Because so many of them don't really have that, or they use it so minimally, and everyone speaks in like a kind of weird voice.
Yeah. Like really it almost sounds like they're talking into like a paper bag. And so it's like all kind of rattly, and you can tell they are trying to really enunciate.
Yeah, or they're trying to avoid it all completely. Because there's sometimes where it's like characters are speaking, it sounds like they're speaking backwards. They're saying nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
One time it sounded like they were speaking Spanish. I think they may have been, actually.
I gave these to you in just kind of random order, but I have them down here, and I think somewhat chronological order, at least by year.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one, this is Land of Cotton from 1929.
Yeah, that was like the second to last one that I watched. And listen, my thoughts on it changed as I watched it, because really it was like, it seemed actually like a good tale about how people should be treated equally. But
they're slaves. Like the mice are slaves in like a plantation kind of way, but they sort of overthrow their master and escape. So there is kind of like a Django. There we go. Maybe that should have been in there. Could you imagine if Quentin Tarantino had like done an old school animation to open up that film? It was basically that. It's probably not his interest, but
yeah. But like, if you think, you know, who was the biggest villain in that film? It was very clearly the slave master. Like he was
Samuel L. Jackson.
Cruel. In Land O' Cotton.
Land of Cotton. Yeah.
It was very clearly the
It's like a
slave
dog
owner.
or something.
Yeah, he was lecherous and cruel and just mean to animals and people alike, or mice alike.
Yeah, he's like physically abusive, sexually abusive, and like mentally abusive. Like at one point, he gives the mouse food, and when she turns around to watch her and comes back, he's moved the food just out of reach of her cage. And then he comes and puts another animal in out of reach of it. He's just torturing her for basically like, I can't even remember what it was, just like denying his advances or something, I guess.
Yeah, but they escape, and a donkey helps them, and it's a wonderful story, and we all cheer for these.
Well, and I think you left out
accolades.
something important in that the donkey is riding a penny farthing for a piece of cartoon.
So, you don't like the old-time bikes, huh?
Like the bike with the old-timey front wheel.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, even in the 1930s, like that would be anachronistic. Like,
Well,
do you
so
think the kids
are
watching-
plantation, like slave plantations.
Yeah, fair
and,
point.
like-
But do you think the kids would have been like, "What the fuck?" Like, ah.
I think it's
Real
understood to
weird,
be a historical piece. And they all work together to murder the boss and be free, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Something for our purposes that we should mention is that this is before the mouse characters, Mikey and Mindy, we'll call them, started to look like Mickey and Minnie.
Yeah, they look like mice, like I guess traditional mice.
They have like conical faces, and yeah, they don't look like Minnie and Mickey really, other than they have the big round ears.
Yeah.
And something that you notice is that when Disney draws Mickey from like the side or three quarters, there's one ear on the very top of his head and one jutting like out the very back. And they never get that right at any point in any of these comics. They're always right on top of the head. And it's like, that's the marker of a Mickey Mouse knockoff more than anything, I think.
Yeah, that and the teeth. Like some
Wait, some of them have like one tooth.
or like even more disturbing, like a full mouth of teeth. That's equally as off-putting.
All right, do you have anything else to add about the Land of Cotton?
No.
It was fun. I like the themes, like the music. I mean, it's racist, but I like when they're sitting on the riverboat playing banjos and eating watermelons, They're having a good time. It's fun to see, and it really creates a contrast when then all of a sudden it's like revealed like, oh, they're doing hard labor. Oh, they're being auctioned off as like chattel. Yeah. It's kind of shocking.
Yeah. My notes went, steamboat, ! Holy shit, ! And then finally, pretty progressive.
I mean, I don't even think it's that progressive. I think most people understood that like slavery was bad by 1930. All right. So next I have Red Riding Hood. This is from 1929. This is another Van Beuren cartoon. Got Red Riding Hood played by Mindy. This one doesn't have Mikey. She's going to visit her grandmother who's deathly ill, or at least she is until a doctor gives her a single drop of jazz tonic. That's what it's labeled. And then she pours it all of herself and she regains her youthful vitality.
Yeah, she turns into a hot grandma. My question is jazz tonic, was that like some type of code?
I'd guess cocaine. I'd guess it's cocaine based.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, she gets all hottied up. Then the big bad wolf comes along. He's driving a tiny car and smoking a cigar. Which I just love that. And then he arrives, and Grandma kind of vamps him with her hot new bod.
Who are you?
I'm Grandma.
Some grandma. Mm-hmm. What beautiful eyes you have.
And he plays the pipe organ while she dances. And it's very suggestive.
Yeah, it is. Listen, this is a little delayed. My favorite part is when she spills the jazz tonic on her foot, and only her foot morphs into like this high-heeled leg.
Oh yeah. Like her shoe changes into high heels.
Yeah.
But like also they're those kind of like blobby cartoon high heels. It's like a high-heeled sneaker that cartoons wear.
It's the way I would draw a high heel on it's like I guess that's a high heel.
Did you ever see that movie? It had John Ritter. I think it was called Stay Tuned.
No.
Where he buys like a satanic satellite dish and then gets zapped into his TV.
No.
along with his family, and they're like going through different kinds of shows, but they're all like evil and trying to kill him.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, at one point he actually zaps into a world where they're cartoon mice.
Oh my God, we're cartoons. Boy, this is strange.
Strange? I'm an animated rodent wearing high-heeled running shoes. The word strange is somehow lacking.
And she's got those things on. They only appear in cartoons. And then Little Red Riding Hood shows up, and Grandma hides in the closet. The wolf disguises himself as Grandma. But the ruse doesn't take, and Grandma, now in a wedding dress, and the wolf hop into his car, and they elope.
Yeah, this was very unexpected.
Yeah, it was a strange twist where it's like the grandma's caught. Like, she's like, oh, no.
There's a few of those moments in these cartoons where it's like it's a total departure of what I'm expecting will happen.
Yeah, because they're not quite like the Disney cartoons. They're a little bit more lurid, you know? They're a little more adult. And then so Red Riding Hood runs and tells the wolf's wife, who runs after the wolf with a rolling pin, followed by her dozens of children who are also brandishing rolling pins.
That's like probably the best part of this entire cartoon. Like, for a punchline, it's so awesome. They're marching up the aisle, and it's just like little boy wolves and little girl wolves just marching behind her, and like that sort of looping that I was talking about earlier.
And they're all brandishing the rolling pin, which is like the stereotype instrument that you bludgeon your good for nothing husband with, you know?
Yeah. Andy Capp and wolves everywhere cower in fear of the rolling pin.
That's true. Me too. That's just because you can roll over your fingers. Ugh. Have you ever done that?
No, dude.
Oh, have you ever used a rolling pin?
Yeah, of course. I make homemade pizza.
Hey, me too.
Nice.
Do you make your own dough?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't usually make my own dough. I go and buy it.
I'll send you the recipe I have for dough. It's really easy. Look, I actually have it right here.
That's funny that you have it right there. But I mean, I already know how to make it. I already have a recipe for it. It's cheap. It's also cheap to buy it pre-made, and you can buy like a whole wheat crust.
Oh, yeah.
So I go to this little Italian market. They sell it there, and it's like a few bucks. So
okay.
I just feel like it's easier to get that. It works really well. When you make your own dough, it's not quite as nice.
Yeah. Oh, tell me about it. All right. What's up next? What's our next one?
All right. We got Circus Capers, 1930. So first of all, I love the fat lady under the tiny curtain. There's like the Barker is there. He's like, I think he's a mouse, and he's like, she walks, she talks, she crawls on her belly like a reptile. You know, this is the traditional kind of like call, and then it's all garbled, but. Then this tiny curtain pulls up, and impossibly from under it is this just like fat, slovenly dog woman. And I mean, I don't mean to insult her appearance, but she's not rendered sexy.
No.
You know,
No.
to some she is, I'm sure. There's someone out there, but she's big. She's a big lady. And like her eyes are wonky, and she looks like, you know, like she's had a lobotomy or something. It's very funny. And she does like a seductive dance.
This was the one where this is the last one I watched, but this is one in particular that I was like, I wrote down in the note, like the movements in these characters have are mesmerizing. Like I could make little GIFs. If I could make a GIF, I would make a GIF of some of these.
Well, Mindy, I think, is at her sexiest in this of the ones you watch, because in the other ones, she's got like the literal rubber hose limbs, where it's like all the limbs are just like a black stick with no definition. But in this one, she's got like kind of like Betty Boop legs a little bit.
Yeah, this one's a pervert cartoon.
Oh, well, I'll dispose of this. All for Silas, all for Silas.
And it's kind of typical of all these Mikey and Mindy cartoons, where it's like some awful mustachioed boss is trying to get with Mindy, and then they sing a schmaltzy song about smiling or laughing instead of being sad or nervous or whatever. But this one subverts it a bit, because Mindy willingly goes with the boss, and she's like laughs at at Mikey and is kissing the boss. And the way that the boss dispenses of Mikey, because right off the bat it's shown like Mikey and Mindy, they're a couple, they're smooching between acts and stuff, and then Mikey is getting into the human cannonball act, and the boss fills the cannon with powder, so he gets launched really far, and then they run off, and like Mindy's laughing at him.
It was horrible. She's sitting on his lap and like playing with his mustache, and I was anticipating that it would be something like she does something horrible to the boss. But just like that last one, Little Red Riding Hood, where they totally subvert my expectations, they do it again.
Or you expect like her not to be willingly going with the boss, to be kind of like the way Bluto would take olive oil and she'd be like, that sort of thing. But no, she's just like, she's in on that. She's just like, ooh, this is a step up. He's the boss. But he does something. He gets a little too fresh, because when Mikey lands, he starts singing a song, Laugh Clown.
Even though you're only make-believing, laugh, clown, laugh. Even though something inside is grieving, laugh, clown, laugh. Don't let your heart grow too mellow. Just be a real Punchinello fellow.
And he's dressed like Pagliacci and stuff. When Mindy comes out and goes to kiss him, it seems like he's going to kiss her, but he doesn't. And she does like a flip take, and her panties fall off twice. like right off.
Yes, and she's scrabbling around to get them back on again. But even before she can get her knickers on, I've seen everything. You know, I've seen it all.
You know, like in the way that in a cartoon, if someone was shocked, their hat would shoot up in the air and come back down. It's like her panties did that. And he's like, no.
No, he gives her a raspberry. He's like,
oh, yeah. Yeah, I like that one a lot. It's probably my favorite.
It was a really fun one, but it did push the envelope. And I could see why Walt was like, yeah, you're getting a cease and desist.
Well, I mean, the main thing is that they wanted to shore up their copyright, right? Because they wanted to build an empire on this mouse. And so you can't have other people doing the same thing. And that's the thing about this rubber hose style of animation and drawing, is that the characters are all very generic. We're not going to really talk about this one, but I gave you a Merry Melodies cartoon with Foxy and Roxy. It's like, those are not mice, but they might as well be. They look exactly like Mickey and Minnie, just their ears come to a little bit of a point at the top and their tails are bushy.
Yeah. Which one was that? Was that Smile Darnia or Office?
That's Smile Darnia Smile.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was one of the department names I pitched to Mad when I had a full page comic in there.
Smile Darnia?
Kyle Darnia. It was a big list.
Yeah.
So next I have Hot Tamale.
Yes.
Oh, I thought this one was a bit of a dud.
It was a dud. I thought it was fun. It was kind of weird. It had like a lot of kind of visual things that I liked. Like when, what's his name? Morky?
No.
Morky and Morny.
Oh, Mikey and Mindy.
Mikey and Mindy. You know, he's serenading her with his guitar. And he goes in and then he gets literal cold feet. Like he gets blocks of ice on his feet. And,
they do that cool thing with kind of his like phantom version of himself comes in.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
And then you had like the mustachioed bad guy that kind of swoops in. But
my main problem with this one was that it took too long. It's like an 8-minute cartoon. It takes 6 minutes for, let's call him Bootleg Poot to show up. You know, the best part I felt in there was when there's like an eel and a lobster and a frog. They're like singing the chorus to a song and like the cactuses are dancing. You know, you like to see that, but it just seems like it could have been a little bit more even throughout this one. So this cat shows up. This is like the Bootleg Poot and tries to win over Mindy, but he can't. So he kidnaps Mindy, and then Mikey saves her, and he's got a sombrero on through his whole thing. Probably why I picked this one. I thought you'd probably like that.
Oh, I do. I love it.
Yeah.
You know I love that Mexican style.
Yeah, the music's good in this one. This one has good music.
Well, and the cat speaks Spanish. The cat is like lighting him up in Spanish.
Ay, mi madre, miren quién está aquí. Intruso, poca vergüenza, garabato, estúpido, entrometido, desgraciado, malora, sinvergüenza, mal rayo te mata. Así se te caiga la dentadura y tus hijos te salgan todos discos. Canalla, bribón, accidentado, muerto de hambre, calzonazos, desgraciado.
and it was that was kind of cool. There is something else that's very strange, and it's like they're donkeys that they're riding around, or the burros, as they would say. They're like made out. They're like mechanical, so their legs look like wooden puppet things, and they like Mickey screws or Michael.
Mikey.
Hey, Mikey!
Mikey.
Milton
Mikey,
is actually Milton, but
Milton
I say Mikey.
screws off his head and like throws stones into the cat's donkey.
Yeah, it's very weird.
It is.
They have these mechanical bodies, but they have like regular expressive heads.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very strange. I don't know what was going on there. The only thing I can think is that maybe that's like a play on gay guacho films or whatever, where maybe they used fake horses. You know, maybe you'd have scenes where people were just sitting on like a fake horse or a fake donkey, and maybe that's kind of playing on that. I don't know.
There is some pretty heavy smooching that's alluded to at the end also.
You like the smooching?
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
Where's Smoochie?
Hi, Poochie. You look like you've got something to say. Do you?
Yes, I certainly do. I have to go now. My planet needs me.
So this final one, The Office Boy, I watched these in reverse order.
Okay.
So
I didn't give them to you in any order. I just gave them to you and I was like, I'll figure out how we'll put this together later.
Yeah. But yeah, as it happened, I watched Office Boy first, and then I went progressively older and older with these cartoons. But this one is like, you get the Office Boy starts out, he's playing the harmonica, and this is like the most Mickey looking version that we have. He's got the shorts with the button on it.
Yeah.
He's got, I don't know. I guess that's it for Mickey. The big old boat shoes.
I feel like the vibe is more Mickey in this one, too.
Yeah.
He's the office bitch for railroad tycoon E.P. Dunkwasser. And he and Dunkwasser's secretary, Mindy, are in love. So that's kind of the premise.
Yeah. But yeah, the whole quality of it is like a lot higher. I did watch this one with my kids. And I'm glad it's the only one that I watched with my children, by the way.
If you watch the Cubby cartoons, if you go on my channel and look up the Cubby cartoons, those are the cartoons that came out basically after the cease and desist. I find those are a higher quality, and I think they're a little more child friendly as well.
Yeah. So Mikey does this darling thing when Mindy comes into work where he's like dusting, and with his tail he types on the typewriter, "I love you." And then she sits down and she hits a key and it's the number 2, and she gives the note to him.
Yeah.
Like, how? Come on.
It's a little cloying, but
oh, dude, I loved it.
Cartoon characters like that sort of thing. Yeah, and then the boss comes in and gets her to take some dictation.
Dear sir.
She starts typing, and she's typing obviously too long to be what he said. Then he's like, and she types that. He's and then finally she just pulls it out and gives it to him. He's like, oh, okay. And then he goes into his office, and it's Mikey's job to kind of keep anybody from disturbing him.
Yeah.
And so you get a couple scenes of what the boss is doing with his time, and he's like playing with toy trains, smoking cigars, working on his golf game,
riding around the office. He's like sitting on this teeny tiny train, just like spinning around on the office. It was amazing.
Yeah, he puts a cigar in the steam hole or whatever, and it's puffing at the top. Very cute. And then these like goofy kind of like rich guy stereotypes are showing up to talk to him. And Mikey keeps pressing a button that pulls up a sign that says "in conference."
Yeah.
But then he calls in Mindy, and they start dancing. And Mikey doesn't like that too much. So then when Dunkwasser's wife shows up, he doesn't cover for him. And she goes in and finds him getting handsy with Mindy. And in fact, when they're dancing, it seems like she's dancing with him as a friend, right? Like she's just like, oh, we're just dancing. This is fine. And Mikey's being a little silly. But then when they open the door, when his wife shows up, I don't know if you noticed this, but you can see in the reflection in the window, he's like grabbing her and she's fighting him off. So obviously he did get a little fresh. as bosses are wont to do with their secretaries, especially then. And then Mikey and Mindy, they jump into a painting of a train and sing "You're a Fascinating Baby" to each other as the train kind of rolls away.
You're a fascinating baby, such a fascinating baby, and your roly-poly eyes look good to me. For you sure seem mighty clever, I could flirt with you forever, and I bet that you can shake a wicked knee.
One of the things that I love so much about these old cartoons are the inanimate objects that become animated. And I think it was one of them that you sent that we haven't talked about, where there's like all of these ads that like the person looks up at and they become animated and activated by people looking at them. And like the things like the newspaper or like the little fish and lobsters that come out of the fountain to sing.
Everything's alive.
Yes.
It's Toontown. It's Toontown from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
And it's very magical. It's like you want to live in that world, you know, even though when you stop and think about it, it's kind of like a demonic nightmare world.
Much like Toontown.
Yeah. But there is something about it that's very appealing. It's just so fascinating and so enjoyable to like look at and not think about too much.
So I got to say, I am so excited for all of the rubber hose animation that's going to come out next year using Steamboat Willie.
Well, hopefully, I mean, just because it's in the public domain, Disney still owns the trademark on it. They even changed their logo in, I think, 2007 or something to be the iconic scene of Mickey at the wheel of the steamboat, in part, I think, to shore up their trademark. So it's like you couldn't release a product with that image on the cover, or a book with that image on the cover, because that's their trademark, even though that's in the public domain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they'll use the law to basically force people to concede even where they're not in the right.
Yeah, because they can just use their vast sums to get you to stop. Like they can just tie you up in court and they can go forever and you can't. So
exactly. And if they do go forever and they get to the end of that trial, they'll back out at the last minute so that nobody else can have the same deal that you're getting, basically. So if you want to do the novelization of Steamboat Willie and release that as like, you know, an epic young adults fiction series or something, and they come after you, you're not going to be able to fight them, you know?
Maybe we should work on that.
Well, I mean, the thing we were going to talk about was air pirates. When I was just decided, like, I don't want to do a bunch of research. I want to do an easy episode. But that's where Dan O'Neill and a bunch of other underground cartoonists that would have been in that Drew Friedman book I showed you earlier.
Yeah.
Did a comic where it was Mickey and Minnie Mouse, like, having sex and doing drugs. And they did get sued. And it's like it's a very interesting court case. And it's certainly worth looking at in the future. But I don't have the energy between Christmas and New Year's, you know?
No way. This cover for Air Pirates looks fucking amazing. Mickey Mouse meets Air Pirates funnies, and he's flying a plane that has dope tied to the back, like bags that just say dope on it.
You know who'd be fun to talk about that with, I bet? Like Noah Van Sciver or someone like that.
All right, Noah, give us a call.
Pick up the phone.
Yeah, 612-877. Wait, that's my real number. Delete that.
We got to make a jingle. We got to get it into like a number and a jingle.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. Is there anything else you have to add?
No, dude, I'm so glad that you brought these to my attention, though. It was like a lot of fun to just sit back and watch these.
Yeah, and it's nice to watch Disney suck our respective pussies and dicks, you know, and not be able to do anything about it. So that's always fun, too.
I'd like to be your sheep at least 3 times a week. And how I'd love to bite my initials in your cheek. You're a fascinating, fuzzy little bunch of loveliness with exasperating, captivating eyes, I must confess. You're a fascinating baby doll to me.
Thanks for watching, idiot. Hit like and subscribe. And hey, if you want more black podrzebiepodcast podcast, check out the links in the show description.
Yeah.